Hello, everybody. Welcome. How are you guys doing? Waiting to see who is going to be here. Come on in. Welcome. If you're in the East Coast of the US, maybe it's all over the US. I'm not sure. I'm not following up with the news. But we had some of the most cold weekend that I've had in a while, which personally I'm not afraid of the cold. I'm from Jamaica where it's very warm, but I really do like the cold. And so this week was pretty cold. And so if you're living in any of those areas like North Carolina, I'm in Atlanta, we didn't get much snow, but it was really cold. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. My daughter's alarm went off and I didn't want it to disturb us. Okay, get on in here. Come on in. We're going to have a wonderful session today. I'm just waiting to see who else is going to join. And then we're going to get started. And I'm having my tea in my favorite cup, which is a Montreal cup, which is one of my favorite places. Okay, so as you come on in, please hit the like button as you come in. And if you have never joined a live from us before, welcome. This is the Global BA Stand-Up. It's primarily for business analysts, but if you're in other fields such as Scrum Master or product owner or product manager, or you write code or you're a developer or you're a software architect, I think you'll find it very, very useful as well. We have it on the first Monday of every single month. We've had it now for almost 2 years, going into our second year now. So it's very, very helpful. I think you'll find it useful. We talk a lot about business analysis. We talk about how we can improve our career. So if you're new to this, welcome. And I hope you guys will stay and enjoy. Can you put in the chat where you guys are joining from? Let me see where you are, because again, this is the Global BA Stand-Up. So we expect to have a lot of people from different parts of the world. So just put in the chat where you're joining from, and we'd love to hear from you. We're about to get started. We have a wonderful guest today. Today's topic, as you may have seen from our messages that we've been putting out, today's topic is going to be about from reactive to proactive, and ways that business analysts can add value. So I think it's going to be a very, very lively, very, very good discussion. So I'm looking forward to having that. Okay, welcome, Lucia from Toronto. Awesome. We always have a big support from Toronto. I love the people in Toronto. I know I talk about Montreal a lot, but I also love Toronto. New Jersey, welcome. North Carolina, Ontario. There you go. See, lots of Canadians in the house. Ontario. Actually, I'm coming to Canada this week. So I'm going to be in Montreal again. So if anybody's here who's in Montreal, I'd love to, I don't know, say hi or something. So let me know. You can send me an email. We can figure it out. But yeah, come on in. Click the like button as you come in. We're going to get started in a few minutes. New York, welcome. New York's in the place. I know you guys are used to the cold over there in New York, but you can keep your weather. We in the South, we don't want it. We don't want your snow. We don't want your cold weather. You can keep it. I'll get it when I visit, but I don't want to have it when I'm not looking to have it, right? So beautiful North Carolina. Awesome. Welcome. All right. So without too much further ado, I'm sure others will join in a few. We're going to get started. I want to introduce our guest speaker for today. We have somebody that you guys should easily recognize the name. This is a person who's been in the field for such a long time. This person has written books about business analysis, so many accolades around this career, has contributed significantly to the field through or YouTube channel or LinkedIn post. She has so many good resources for you. So without further ado, I want to introduce our wonderful guest, Laura Brandenburg, who's going to share with us her insights on how business analysts can become proactive. So let me get Laura on. Hello, Laura. How are you?
Good. How are you, Carolee? So
I'm
grateful to be
very good.
here.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming through. We've always been following you and we've learned so much from you. So it's really great to have you here with us on the show. Thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend too much time. I know we have a lot going on for today and we only have an hour together. So I want to turn it over to you to just share with us what you came prepared to share. And I know we're going to learn a lot. We'll take the
Yeah.
questions at the end, by the way. So we'll just let you run through your presentation or your discussion and then we can get the questions. Or you can change it if you want to do it another way. That's fine with me. Oh, we think we had a little delay. I don't know, maybe it was just me. Can you hear me?
I did have a little bit of a blip. I'm not sure if it's me or you, but we got
Yeah.
10 inches of snow here in North Carolina. So I'm glad the tech is mostly
I
working.
know we've had bad weather and we may have some little glitches, but we're gonna cross our
Yeah.
fingers that none of
And
it
it's a lot for this
for
little
sure
town
today.
that, they don't plow the streets. All
I
right.
know we don't
So
have
can
the
you see
infrastructure in
my
this part of
deck?
the world.
Yeah.
Not yet.
All right.
Let
It
me know
says
if you
it's
have the
sharing.
opportunity to share it.
I shared it through the, I don't know if there's
Let's
some,
see.
there
Oh,
we
there
go.
we go. Awesome. All right.
All
Awesome.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm so glad that the chat is already really active because this is designed to be a super interactive session, and I do have lots and lots of questions for you. So as we move through, I do encourage you to use the chat. We will take questions specifically at the end, but there's a lot of reflection to do as we go through this. And I think it'll help you integrate the material as well as just and learn from each other, which what I have been hearing so much from the community. Like, we are in a world where nobody's really the expert anymore. Like, for me to say I train people in business analysis and I am very confident in the foundations of business analysis. But there's so much that's changing. And so I learn as much from being part of these communities, and we can all learn so much from each other as well. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Bridging the Gap. We've been doing online business analysis training for 17 years. So before online was the thing, like that's what we were doing. And I'm the author of 2 books: How to Start a Business Analyst Career and The Value-Driven Business Analyst, which are both great ways to figure out or get a little bit deeper with my work. So today we're going to talk about how business analysis creates value beyond just documentation. You're going to go through a light self-assessment grounded in the framework of the Business Analyst Blueprint to identify opportunities where you can increase your impact. And we're going to look at the difference between low value and high value work and crowdsource some ideas around where AI can help you support clarity and not just do what you've always been doing faster, right? And what I want you to leave with my goal for today is if you could leave with just one practical shift that you can apply immediately in your current role or this week, right? It's Monday, so lots of time to make something happen this week. That's what I think we should always be coming into sessions like this to do, is to, like, yes, we want to learn and absorb, but like, what piece can we take action on so that we get the value from the time investment that you're making to be here today? So thank you for doing that. As we dip in, feel free to share this in the chat, but just to get us warmed up, I really would like you to think about, like, what is taking most of your energy at work right now? Like, is it meetings? Is it changes? Is it firefighting? Is it, documentation? Is it trying to get the wording right? Is it learning a new industry? Like, all of those could be potential ideas, but just what's taking most of your energy at work right now? And because of the delay in the chat, I'm probably going to, move forward and then circle back in and really read what you're saying as it goes forward, just to be attentive to the time. So when I think about energy, what I think of and what I see right now and how business analysis is happening is that most practicing business analysts are super busy, right? Very capable, caring, thoughtful, detail oriented, and somewhat reactive, right? Somewhat reactive, because there's just so much pressure and urgency in the environment today. And so if you're feeling this way, you are certainly not alone. And I see some shares in the chat. Damiola says meetings, documentation, process, documenting edge cases. So these are things that are kind of consuming energy, right? Edge cases, gosh, that can just take so much to think about, right? And those can be important. They could be proactive, like let's document all the edge cases so that we don't have an unexpected thing happen. Or it can be a little bit like, do we really need to document all of these edge cases, or could we be a little lighter on the analysis and deliver more value? So, that is there's not a one size fits all that I could tell you, but, it's something to pay attention to. Are the edge cases the area that you're adding the most value? Maybe it's yes, maybe it's no. So some of the reactive behaviors that I tend to see are being consumed with day-to-day issues, right? Fighting fires, documenting decisions as opposed to helping the proactively facilitating decisions, and also perfecting models and tweaking requirements, right? So getting too perfect too quickly as opposed to having conversations, exploring impacts, and reaching out to stakeholders across the organization. And this is super common, and it's not a personal failure, right? The environment is set up this way. We are living in a world where the urgent is ever present across our news cycles, across our organizations, in terms of what's happening in the stock market, like all of the things. So let me know again in the chat, like, are any of these coming up in your current work? And it's okay if the honest answer is all of them. And again, if that's you, it's not that you're broken or a bad business analyst, it's that you've been under positioned. And there are steps you can take to reposition yourself to leverage your deeper strengths and to be a proactive leader from within the framework of business analysis. So we're going to go there and figure that out. But first, let's really get an understanding of what it looks like. All right, so by value. And the first thing I want to realize is that value is not seen the same way by everyone. So, you'll see this like picture of a hammer up here. Like, why is there a picture of a hammer? So when you want to hang a picture, do you really want a hammer, or do you just want a picture on the wall? Right? And when you think about that, like if there was another way to hang the picture, which I've done it with like stickies, I've done all kinds of things, right? You might not need the hammer. There's workarounds for that. And the same thing when we think about the value provided by a tool like a hammer, our business teams don't necessarily want our use cases, our visual models, our process maps, right? Like those are the tools, those are the hammers. What they want often is working software, updated processes, understanding that drives real business change. And so when we're thinking about how we communicate our value and make that shift from reactive to proactive, we know that these models are going to help us create that outcome. But when we're speaking about our work, it might not make sense to have those models take center stage. So no matter what you do or what you take away from today, just remember there's always different perspectives on value. Your organization might value things getting done quickly, or they might value things getting done right, or they might value like the customer experience over the internal process. There was a great post somebody talked about, it was Pamela Patterson, right? And she shared the story of like having 2 days or a day with her and one coworker where they were kind of working in a store, and the boss had asked them to just clean everything. And she spent all this time cleaning like the staff toilet. And he was like, that wasn't what I meant. I wanted the customer facing shelves and things to be clean, right? So what she did, she worked really hard and cleaned all the back office stuff, and it was sparkling, but it wasn't actually what was expected or wanted, right? So like we always want to understand what is it that is being valued in our organization, and how can we position our work so that it's seen as valuable because we're speaking to those needs and wants. So let's look at some specific ways that business analysis creates value. And this is from chapter 9 of my latest book, The Value Driven Business Analyst, which I mentioned. So we help reduce costs. So this is, a big piece of what we do is when we reduce rework. So when the requirements are unclear or undocumented, or when business and technical stakeholders aren't on the same page about a project, there's rework. And so clear requirements create a shared understanding and minimize its churn and churns again and again and again, because nobody's really held to take that decision-making process. And when we can make that timeline for a decision shorter, we reduce the cost of all the stakeholder time. When we help find more cost-effective solutions, so often when we start by analyzing a business process, we might find a more effective way to achieve that outcome that doesn't involve as much technology or as much overhead. And that can be a great way to reduce costs. And we reduce consulting costs. So one of our participants in our program learned how to map processes right in the beginning. It's the first module of what I teach. We're going to look at that in a minute. And they were able to reduce their vendor costs in terms of that kind of work, and save for $40,000 in vendor costs. Now imagine what she was able to talk to when it came performance review time, salary review time, right? In terms of the value she brought to her organization by minimizing an external cost like that. But we also could increase benefits. So
Hold on one second, Laura. I don't know what happened, but your sound went out just for the last sentence that you just made. So I don't know if you want to repeat that. We had a little,
around new benefits,
yes, when you spoke about
a little blip.
yeah, the
Okay.
benefit that example you gave, the lady could speak to when she did her performance review. So just from there.
Oh yeah, the 40,000. Yeah, she saved $40,000 in vendor costs. So, which they were planning to outsource to somebody to analyze all the processes. Yeah, so huge soft savings there. Thank you for that. Okay. And then you could also, this is a hard one, but pause projects with a negative ROI, right? And not that you have necessarily the authority to do that, but you can make that recommendation, and you can do the analysis that shows this project is not going to deliver what is intended, or it's going to take so much effort and the ROI on this is not actually positive. And then finally, we can leverage solutions more effectively. So when we really understand the business environment, the business need, like we can see opportunities to use the current solutions that are available, and to make sure that the business is using them in the most effective ways. So this is just, this I think is even just still scratching the surface, but I think we need these tangible pieces to speak to in business language that really help our community understand this. And notice we're talking about value without really mentioning an artifact or a template or a tool. It's the outcome. It's the change that's happening. So with this in mind, I encourage you, and I will pause for a moment, both because I'm nursing a bit of a cold and need some tea, but also to give you a minute to really reflect on this. What's one example of when you have created value using business analysis? And I would encourage you to share this in the chat and think of it as crowdsourcing. Because when we share, someone else might realize, oh my gosh, I've done the same thing. And for you as well, you might see your own value in other people's shares. So I'm just going to pause for like a minute to give you some time to really reflect on that. And then I'll move on and start speaking about kind of the challenges that come up when we do this, right?
Yeah, and while you're taking that pause and while you guys are entering this in the chat, I wanted to just chime in on an example. So earlier you talked about the different perspective of value, like the example of the person cleaning the bathroom for the staff when they really meant, the customer facing stuff. And it is so common that we understand something and then we go off and do what we think we understand and we haven't really clarified. I give an example. I work as a consulting, I work in consulting and I work with financial institutions. And with one client, they valued having lots of documentation. Obviously, they value the working software too, but for them, having the documentation was like ultimate because they had people that changed squads and teams, and they were just kind of scared that someone's going to leave and we're not going to know where you are. And this is a multi-year project. So for everything that we did, there was a lot of documentation. We had the conference pages, we had discussions and decision logs, and honestly, the good thing was that we did have the software being developed kind of in parallel. So we didn't feel like the documentation was holding us back, but they really value documentation. The other company I worked with, they valued speed to market. So for them, it was just like decisions are made really quickly in the meetings and just get it done. Let's get it in Jira. Let's work on it. So they valued speed and working software faster than having a bunch of documentation. So you could, as a BA, be thinking you're adding value by spending so much time writing and documenting when maybe that organization may not have that much emphasis on that documentation and they rather you work faster with the developers to get the decision done. So I think knowing what exactly the value that's being valued for this organization and how this team is working is tantamount to you being successful as a BA. So you deliver the right things at the right time. So I think that's
Yeah, such a great example, Carolise, because like sometimes it is the documentation, right? And so, but like also if that's been your experience, that it is the documentation and you are in a much more agile organization and nimble, like whether or not they're using agile practices, it can be really disconcerting to figure out like where to like hang your value hook in a way when that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I
We're seeing some
see
great. Yeah,
some
go
things in
ahead.
the chat. Yeah, you want to go ahead and take any of these?
Sure. We've got early risk identification and mitigation, deciding policy change over new implementation that will satisfy an objective. Yeah, so mitigating risk can be huge. Identifying an ongoing issue and providing a solution, improving a process, but not having the title of BA. I love that example because you don't have to be a BA to do business analysis.
Right.
You also don't have to be a titled BA to build business analysis experience. So if you're in a transition mode, like the best way is just to start doing some of this work, and no matter what your title or your role is. So those are some great examples. Thank you. And got a little bump in an arrays thanks to the BA value goals. And then Lucia shares automate customer online application submission process, but all was a manual process. Right. So it's funny. I am actually working with a client on this right now. And we're like, you would think value of the online application would be to create efficiency. But really their main, and we're looking for those opportunities for sure, but really their main goal is to increase new customers by putting that process online instead of having this clunky kind of email process. And so it's a huge perspective in terms of when I'm going through and talking about scope and different options. So their goal is customer acquisition. We might do something that takes a little bit more work on the back end just to be able to meet that customer acquisition goal because efficiency is not their main goal. So like something like that can have different value or perceived value depending on what the organization's goals are. Okay. All right. So let's go on because I do want to speak to a few things here. So like we know we create value as the BAs, right? Of course, as well, there are challenges, right? There are challenges, there are circumstances that make it challenging to deliver the kind of value. Some of them are aggressive deadlines. When we have a really tight deadline, it's a lot harder to do the right analysis. We might be assigned late in the project after all the interesting and fun and impactful decisions are made. We might be in an unclear role where it's not quite clear exactly what we're supposed to do or how we're supposed to work or who we're supposed to work with. And so we spend a lot of time figuring that out or going down kind of rabbit holes because we're not really quite sure what we're supposed to be doing in this team. Or we might have stakeholders that are unengaged. And in my experience, all of these external factors tend to lead to a lack of confidence, because when we're feeling like we were assigned too late and we've just got to get something done and nobody's engaged, like we can take it on ourselves of like, I must be doing something wrong, and start to feel lacking confidence in ourselves and our role. But what I want to say here, every time I put these out, and feel free to put in the chat if these land for you, these are not uncommon challenges. So if you are experiencing them, you are not alone. And if you're experiencing all of them, you are certainly not alone. Um, but still, there are things business analysis from reactive to a proactive position. There's things that we can't control. So you can't control when you're assigned if you're brought in late, right? You can't control the organizational maturity if there's not much of an SDLC or kind of an understanding of what the BA is supposed to do. You can't directly control stakeholder engagement, though you can influence that for sure. And you can't always directly control deadlines and funding, right? These might be decisions that are made external to your role. And when that happens, you can do really excellent work and you may not be heard, you may not be, but there are things you can control. Because agency does not just live in that external environment, it lives in how you think and the choices that you make within the work that you're currently doing. So you can control what you pay attention to. You can control what you clarify versus and what you analyze, sort of how you show up, how you do the analysis. You can control the questions that you ask, and you can control where you invest your energy and where you stop over perfecting. And so what we're going to do now is just a really brief self-assessment around, where you are showing up reactively to refine requirements because they weren't clear on what to do. So that is a tough situation, but also a huge opportunity to create a value add because they're seeing the problem. And so you're there to create clarity, and you can accomplish that.
Laura,
Yes.
do you want to restate what the ask is for this assessment? I think there was a little tech glitch.
No, I'm going to go through it. I haven't gotten there yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, though. This was just sort of a transition slide into the assessment. So I haven't gotten there, but thank you, Carolise. Solutions bought and signed for, and then it doesn't have the correct functionality, right? So then you're trying to fix somebody else's decision. Okay, so let's move into the self-assessment. And this is the Business Analyst Blueprint. It's the framework that I have developed and I teach from at Bridging the Gap, but we're going to use it today as a self-assessment tool. So along the top, you see there's business, software, and information level. These are 3 different perspectives of different ways to look at the requirements on a project. And they're broken up by analysis and communication because we do the analysis, the clarity, but we never do this in a vacuum. So there's always a way that involves some sort of communication and collaboration with the team. And then along the bottom is the 8-step business analysis process framework, which is your approach to the project or how you move a project from beginning to end. And we're going to look at that in a little bit more depth on the next slide. So just some questions to ponder. Feel free to put a yes or no in the chat if you want, or just take note for yourself. So as we look through this model, do you understand the business process? Or for our product, the customer journey and the internal processes that support that journey? right? And do you question business as usual, or do you find unexpected improvement opportunities? And then moving to the software level, do you discover, analyze, and validate the software requirements and ensure they reflect what the business wants and what's feasible within the project constraints? And is the business truly bought in to what the software is going to do for them? And then moving to that information level, do you understand how information is managed in your organization and how data flows between systems? The BA role does not always require doing deep data modeling, but you really do need to understand and bring the business perspective to bear to ensure whoever is doing that data modeling is reflecting what the business really means when they're typing data in a specific field. Kind of a bonus question along this is, are you leveraging AI to help in your discovery, analysis, and meeting facilitation? And then just a big picture question for that 8-step process at the end. Do you have a business analysis process and approach that you can use on your projects? Okay, so your yeses are your value adds. That's where you're being proactive. And the no's are those opportunities where you can look to make a bit of a shift. So let's look at the business analysis process in a little bit more detail. So this starts with getting oriented, figuring out your role, who your key stakeholders are, understanding the key business objectives, the why of the project, understanding scope, getting a team to collaborate and define what the solution scope looks like, coming up with your business analysis plan, working through and defining those detailed requirements, then supporting both the business and the technical stakeholders as they implement the solution, and then finally stepping back and looking at the ROI of the project as a whole. So let's just kind of I'm going to ask you a few questions. And again, just that light reflection of looking for, where's the opportunity for me to maybe make a subtle shift and change things? Do you understand the role at this organization or in this team you're on, and specifically how it adds value? Right, this is what we've been talking about as we go. For a project that you're working on, do you understand the key business objectives and ensure that all key business stakeholders are aligned on those outcomes? Everybody's on the same page about why we're doing what we're doing. Not just what we're doing, but why we're doing what we're doing. Is it efficiency? Is it new customers, right? That kind of dialogue. Do you actively clarify scope and ensure it's feasible within the constraints like budget and timeline? Do you define a BA plan for your activities, estimate the work, and let stakeholders know what to expect from you and set realistic deadlines? I will say this is the one where most of the people I work with need some help in terms of actually putting their plan together and putting their own dates and making sure stakeholders know what to expect about how to engage in the BA process. Oh, Carolise, I saw you pop up.
Oh, yeah. I was about to
Wait, I
say.
couldn't see. Yeah.
I'll jump in here for just an example of this question that you're asking about just having the BA plan. What I found sometimes is that, because I work with multiple BAs, we'll put a plan together and this is how we're going to approach the requirements. We divide the work, but sometimes that plan has to work in tandem. Well, not sometimes, all the time has to work with the PO and the product manager. So sometimes they have the priorities that they want, and we go off and we make the plan, and then requirements change and the priorities change. And then you have to go back and make another plan. So it's very dynamic. It's definitely not something it's one and done. It's kind of a ever evolving part of the work as a BA to reassess and to make sure that you're still working on the priorities that the project has set up. Yeah.
For
Do you
sure.
find that in your example too, Laura?
Yeah, and I see that as a reason that people resist, right? Like, the plan's just going to change anyways. It's like, well, then you have a level set to show what the impact of that change is on you and your work and the work of your team. So it actually makes planning even more essential in my perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. And a part of the plan is the change
Yeah.
management. It's like, how do we handle the change that's coming? Because we're not averse to change.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we manage the change. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then just one last question. Do you proactively collaborate with both the business and the technology teams during implementation? So this was intentionally light because we only have so much time together today. We're kind of in this virtual environment. But if you do want to take this a step further and with more structure, I have this deeper skills assessment that you can use on your own. So it's a free download and it will help you figure out where you're the strongest, where you're compensating, and what one area would be the best to be focused on in 2026. So that's a free resource and feel free to check that out and download that from our website. But from like the work that we were able to do here, the question is like, what's the biggest problem area that you can control? Because it might be like, wow, there was a lot that came up from that. Or, and that's okay. It can be a lot to see all at once, all of the opportunities. We're conditioned to see these external problems and think that the conditions we work in have to change before we have to change. And it can be a bit overwhelming to realize we have so many, right? And so in that, I want to say that, and it doesn't mean that those external conditions don't matter because they certainly do. There are certainly environments where your contribution is going to be more seen and appreciated and sought out. But what I see is that's more the exception than the norm. So what will you do in terms of how you show up and how you choose to be more proactive going forward, right? Where is the area that you can control? And so as we start to wrap up here, I do just want to talk about this shift from low value to high value work. And this is a quote from my book, and it's kind of the simplest piece of career advice that I like to dole out because I feel like it's really practical and actionable. Like thinking about all of what we're talking about in the rest of your career, most often the next obvious step is to eliminate what you enjoy the least, make room for activities that you enjoy the most, and take on one new area of responsibility that excites you. And along the way, invest in whatever support you need or accept the support that might already be available to you. So we're going to walk through this in a little bit more depth, but the idea is like, what can you let go of to create some space? What do you want to take on? And if you keep doing that over the course of your career, if you think about every quarter or every year or every month, doing something like that, letting go of something, taking on something new, you're going to grow a lot. The compound interest on those shifts make a big difference over the course of several years. So let's talk about what are some of the low value for high value activities. So some of the things you might think about giving up: constant messaging, being always available on all the chat channels, and like maybe you're deep in a problem and you get pinged and like, that question that you thought of kind of disappears because of that. The model tweaking, the over perfecting before we collaborate, definitely usually an opportunity for people. Unnecessary meetings. I saw somebody say like their energy is drained right now with too many meetings. Finding one or two or more meetings a week that you can respectfully decline, read the notes of, can be a huge opportunity to reclaim some time. And then anything you really don't enjoy. If you're not enjoying it, it's probably taking you longer and consuming more energy than it needs to. And then what do you want to take on, right? Where can you add more collaborative conversations, more powerful models? So instead of tweaking something, just like what's the simplest thing I could put together that would drive a conversation? Where can you, instead of like being in a bunch of meetings, just listening in, actually build a relationship, meet somebody for coffee, have lunch, get to know what their real concerns are about the project, reach out to that difficult stakeholder who's kind of throwing everything off in a conversation, and have a conversation with them about their behavior or kind of what's driving their behavior. And then any responsibilities that you want, right? Any areas of work that you're not currently involved in. And of course, along the way, you also want to leverage AI to support the clarity as well. I want to do a bit of crowdsourcing here again, though again, the lag in the chat might make it a little difficult for me to share. So I'm going to just share some of the things that I'm seeing people use from AI, but I also would love for you to share how you're using AI as to both influence your productivity, but also really to get to clarity. Because I think, the 2025 goal was how can I use AI to do business analysis as usual faster, meaning faster documentation. The 2026 paradigm is where can I use it to really shape a different way of doing business analysis and to think bigger, and have a different kind of conversation. So some of the ideas that I think or some of the opportunities is you can use AI to learn a new domain. So um, one of the people in my office hours actually suggested asking AI for a learning path of a new domain or a new area. So if you said, like, how would I best learn for this new skill set? And I thought that was really easy, a great way to do it. But also just where, the AI probably knows a lot about your domain and can help you get up to speed on the language, the tool sets, the business environment, so you can do that more quickly. Using AI to help you identify more questions, using vibe coding and prototyping tools to create prototypes, maybe even in real time. And also, recently I've been working with this client told you about, and like using it to scope out solution options. So in the past, like I had to meet with developers and like kind of frame the business needs, and the whole conversation around what solution options are there available to do something was a multi-day or maybe multi-week effort. And with AI, I was able to upload, here's our business requirements and business needs, like here's what our objectives are, here's some ideas I have, here's what I think the workflow might look like, what are the tools that are available that are affordable within this budget to help support that. And then we refine those in conversation, and so that took a half an hour instead of days or weeks. And so it's a really powerful way to use it as well. But if you have other ways of using AI to really support clarity, I'd really love to see those in the chat too. All right, we see this discussion is right on time. I'm newly hired working on a business cases, so I'm writing requirements that need to be high level and value focused. Looking forward to the assessment. Awesome. Yeah. Sounds like a great place, and congratulations on your new role. It's always great. We're in a tough job market, tough economy right now. It's great to always see that people are also getting opportunities. Okay. So as we kind of wrap up, just a little bit of integration. We covered a lot. So just kind of look at your notes or ponder what's come up for you in this session. I wanted you to leave with one practical takeaway. So I have 2 questions to help you get there. What's one activity that you're going to let go of? Could be a meeting, could be how you approach your documents. It could be a document that's really nobody's reading, right? And so you focus on the decision instead of the document. Like, what's one activity that you're going to let go of? And then what's one value area where you will lean into and expand? And I would love to see those in the chat as well. All right. And with that,
So
we have time for questions. Yeah.
Yeah, while everybody's doing that, that was awesome, though. That was absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. I wanted to answer the first one, and then we're going to get into some other topics that you brought up that I had some thoughts on. So, one idea or one activity that I would let go of, for me personally, the thing that comes to mind the fastest is I'm in too many meetings. I think somebody else said that. I'm in too many meetings, and all of the meetings, the thing is, I'm scared not to go to the meeting because that's where all the information is shared. And I feel like if I miss the meeting, then I'm kind of behind. And then you see the chat messages going, they don't know what they're talking about. And even when they record the meeting, it's like sometimes an hour long. I don't have an extra hour to just watch listen to a meeting. So I'm always like, okay, I don't need to be in this meeting. But then if I'm not in the meeting, I go to another meeting and something discussed over there is brought over here. And now I'm out of the loop. So it's a balancing act to know how to use your time wisely. But if you're not careful,
Yeah.
you end up going to all of these meetings as the BA, but the takeaway from the meeting sometimes is work that you have to do. So you end up getting to the end of the day and you have all these things to do anyway. So now you're working later or you're working weekends and you're not making the best of your time. So I think one of the things I would let go of is this need to be in the know for everything. So I join all the meetings.
Mm.
I really have to. This is something I've worked on, and I've gotten better, and then I've fallen back into the same habit again. But being very kind of more conscious of how I'm spending my time in the day, so I end up doing less work in the evenings to catch up, is one of the things I definitely have to let go of. And sometimes I find, and this is something I've encouraged my coworkers to do, some things don't require a meeting. Like it could be a Slack
Mm.
conversation, right? It could be an email.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
because we
and
work,
like some VAs like don't go to meetings without an agenda, right?
yeah,
I really like I have people try to get time on my calendar, and I'm always like, usually I'm happy to, but what do you want to talk about? Like, give me an idea, like, right?
yeah,
And
it's
so
funny.
agenda or knowing what's going to be covered, yeah, and
That's
trusting that
actually
that
pretty
information will circle
timely.
back around if you need it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's timely because I was just in a meeting before this call where we have these recurring meetings on our calendar, but there is no agenda. It's a floating agenda. So every meeting, every week could be a different topic. And I was like, well, I don't know if I need to be there because I don't know what we're talking about. So being very strategic and help your coworkers to also make good decisions by putting the agenda in the calendar, making sure everybody knows what the meeting is about so that they too can show up if they need to show up. I think that would be a great way to just improve our efficiency as business analysts overall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also, guys, put in the chat if you have thoughts about what you're going to give up to be a more value driven business analyst. We'd love to hear from you as well. The second question you had was one area that you're going to start doing, kind of.
Yeah.
This is something I'm already doing, but I'm going to do it more. And I'll give you the backstory. So in my organization, we just had a changing of the guard. So a few, people within the organization, some moved to a different project, and new people came to this project. And so they're new to the project, and they really don't have the backstory to understand all the decisions. So I've noticed that when we go to meetings, decisions are slower because they just don't have the context. So one thing I would love to start doing, and which I will start doing actually, is maybe to find a way to kind of edge them towards the decision I actually want them to take. Right. So provide the
Mm-hmm.
recommendation with all the pros and the cons in such a way that they can easily understand within like a short time, within an hour meeting or so, because sometimes they
Mm-hmm.
need more. They say, oh, we'll let you know tomorrow because they now have to go research, they have to go check the system, they have to do all these things. So being able to show up preemptively with these are all the conditions, these are all the changes, this is the impact it's going to have, and also to be able to tell them about the risks. Like if you don't do this, this is what can happen, or this is the worst case scenario in the case that we don't do it. So that leaders can also have confidence that you have so much dominance of the content, you have so much dominance of your field that they can start to trust you more. So they can become a more trusted BA. So I think helping your bosses look good, helping your bosses to make the right decisions and give them all the information so they can make a quick decision so the project can move along faster. I think that would be something for all of us to start doing. And I definitely see opportunities for myself, which I'll be
Yeah.
doing as well. So that was a
And that's a huge proactive
yeah.
move as well. Like, so, and it's like you're replacing a reactive be everywhere with a proactive, let me do research, present an option, get a clear
Mhm.
decision. And those are the things that really move things forward. So I think that's a great example for everyone to think about, like how you can see like that reactivity shifting to
Yeah,
proactivity too.
because
So
sometimes,
I
and
like
I
it.
talk to a lot of BAs regularly because, I have a membership program. And one of the things that new BAs struggle with they've told me is just understanding the approaches. And so sometimes you get a new job as a BA and you tend to just fall in line with what's already been there. So you end up becoming reactive. Okay, they say to write requirements, let me go write requirements. They say to do this, let me do what everybody else is doing. And you fail in understanding how you can add new value. Like you can add value as a new employee. And it's a very
Yeah.
funny space for a lot of BAs to really navigate because they don't this is their first job. they're not exposed to this a lot, and so they're kind of timid to be proactive.
Mhm.
And one thing you said earlier was
Mhm.
about controlling what you have control of, which is great, right? There are certain things you don't have control of, like you
Right.
can't choose the project you get assigned to, you can't choose the budget, you can't choose some of these things, but you can choose what questions you ask, for example, right? And so new BAs sometimes they don't
Yeah.
ask any questions. They show up and they keep quiet because they don't want to sound stupid. They don't ask a silly question.
Yeah.
But it's very important to think about, obviously you don't want to just keep asking questions unless it's necessary, but try to get knowledge of the domain, and then you can start incrementally becoming more vocal and becoming more proactive to make sure you can really bring value to your project. Yep.
Yeah. I think on that topic, we have a great question in the
Yep.
chat and I would love to hear your
Yep.
thoughts too. Since I'm learning BA, is it okay for me to use AI as I learn?
I'll let you.
I think there's a lot we can unpack in
Yes,
that
I'll
one.
let you go first. I have some thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think, of course, you want to use AI, right? Like you want to use AI to learn the domain, to help you understand context for questions if you can, um, and put together drafts. Though I think the risk, like you also want to learn how to actually do the models, because when you learn how to put together a good process model or write strong requirements, it's not just the output that's important. There's a thinking process that goes into that. And that's where the questions come up, right? And that's where you start to connect the dots. And so if you have AI create an output for you and you don't really truly understand that output, and then you are presenting it to stakeholders, you're going to get caught in trying to defend something that's not yours, or like it's just, you really need to understand the ins and outs of those pieces. And I find like the best way to do that is to actually create them yourself. So yes, use AI as a time saver, use it to help you learn and look up terminology and even draft things, but really make sure you understand the ins and outs of the work that you're doing, because that's the peak. Like you need to be assessing the output of AI,
Mhm.
not depending on the output of
For
AI.
sure. No,
What's your
I definitely
thoughts?
agree for
Yeah.
sure. And you can't outsource your brain to the AI. That's not the way to go, right? And
Yeah.
also the AI, as well as it's trained, it might not catch the edge cases that you're gonna know because you're the BA in that particular context, right?
Yeah.
So even if the AI does give an output, you still have to go over it, make sure it's appropriate. And you don't want to be defending something or talking about something that you don't know enough about. You can't just, create what we call AI slop, get some documentation, throw it over the wall, and then that's your deliverable. Now somebody asks you about it and you don't even remember what it is because you didn't write it. So you can outsource your analysis skills to the AI. You'll use it as a tool to help you and to make things go faster, but you are the brains of the outfit, right? You're supposed to be the one bringing the analysis and helping your team to make the right decisions, not the AI itself.
Yeah.
And other thing about AI I want to call out is that some companies will allow you to use AI like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, and some companies are very strict about which AI you can use. And so be very careful about, using company proprietary information on an open source AI tool that may not be approved, and you don't want to get into any kind of trouble because of that. So make sure if you are using an AI that it is approved and that this is one that the company has said it's okay to use for their work.
100%. Yeah.
All right. I think we have some other questions in the chat. See. So Cynthia says, "Oh, welcome, Cynthia. I know Cynthia. Domain knowledge is always a challenge, and even when you join a new organization, there is need to advocate in this line for new and upcoming BAs." Yes. So if you get a new job, they don't expect you to come in knowing how their particular company works, but they sometimes expect you to know how the industry works, how the domain works, right? So they will expect you to have some domain knowledge, but it's okay if you even get the job and you don't have the domain knowledge, then you're going to become a sponge within the first few days, right? You're going to read all the documentation, you're going to see if there's anything on their drives that they can share. You're going to try to soak up, introduce yourself or have your boss introduce you to team members. And then throughout the course of conversing with them, you glean more and more. So it's always difficult if you don't have the full domain knowledge, but I don't think it's a deterrent for you getting the job or keeping the job. You're just going to apply yourself and kind of do a little bit more upfront to try to close that gap, that knowledge gap that you have in the domain. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And it's also, you can position yourself as the outsider or the new person and use that as a license to ask more questions,
Yeah.
which is a great position to be in a way. Like, oh, I'm new here. I need to ask, I need to make sure we are all using this term in the same way. Because often people are using terminology different ways and they just don't even realize how unclear they're being. And you will see it really quickly as a new person to that domain in
Yeah.
that environment. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we have another question earlier, which is engaging stakeholders can make improving a working software project go smoothly, while a non-engaging stakeholder will make writing more documentations, preferably for other reasons. What do you think? I think the question is about the engagement of the stakeholder, and obviously,
Yeah.
difficult stakeholders that will make your work as a BA much more difficult for sure. What do you think?
Right. I don't know that I would take non-engaging stakeholders as a reason to write more documentation. And I
Yeah.
feel like maybe that's the thread where I like see the opportunity. Like if a stakeholder is not engaged and they're a key stakeholder, like why is that? What is the roadblock? Did they not know that they needed to be involved? So that's where your business, all your deliverables and the timelines and who you need to help set that expectation that, the right person has 3 to 5 hours a week or whatever it is that they might need available to you. So like, or is it that they're actively resisting the project, which is, so just figure out like, why are they unengaged? I can guarantee that throwing more documentation at them is probably not going to increase their engagement. If anything, it's going to decrease it.
Right.
Probably the lighter weight, the less formal, the more mocked up, when you embed questions and highlight things, like it shows the documentation is incomplete. And so they're more likely to ask questions or provide feedback or clarify when the documentation looks less perfect than if it, you spend a lot of time getting it perfect. So don't mistake documentation for clarity, for sure.
Yeah, you can't document your way out of bad requirements, right? If you don't have it at all, because you haven't got a chance as a stakeholder. So what I would do if I don't have an engaged stakeholder, I'll try to see if there's anybody else who knows what I need to know that I can go to that person. Or sometimes you have to raise it as a risk in your project meetings. Hey, I need to get this information. The stakeholders sometimes, they're in very much meetings or they're off on vacation. I don't have anybody else I can talk to. I raise it as a risk so that you don't end up providing incorrect requirements or incorrect documentation in lieu of not having the chance to speak to the stakeholder, and then we build the wrong thing, right? So we definitely want to make sure that we're building the right thing and that we are oh, what happened here? Hold on one second. We're building the right thing and that we have the right information to build it. So that's the other thing. Okay. Let's see here. Hold on one second, guys. I'm trying to make sure that I have Laura on the call as well. Oh, there she is.
I don't know what happened, but I feel like I disappeared and came back.
There you are. All right. So, Laura, you were talking about your book earlier. Can you tell us some more about the book that you mentioned?
Sure. It's called The Value Driven Business Analyst. So just a copy of it here. And it really, the 8-step process framework that I talked about, that's the main structure of the book. So there's a chapter on each step of the process, but it's really about how do you do that work in a value-oriented way? What's the value of each of those steps? How do you deal with the common challenges that come up during those steps? And how do you make sure that you're taking the project from beginning to end to actually create a positive outcome? So it's really a textbook in good business analysis.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the previous books. I'm looking forward to getting this one as well. That's great. And where can we, if anybody wants to check this book out, where do we get it?
Yes, so it's available. There's a page on my website, .com/value. It's available on Amazon in every country that Amazon lets us sell it to. And when you register your purchase at our website, you get some exclusive bonuses with us. So that page also has the links to all the different country Amazon sites, and it's both in print and Kindle.
Awesome. Yeah, somebody said they already have the book. That's
Awesome.
awesome.
If you
And
could
I'll
leave
read
a
this last
review,
one.
that would be great. Like if you already have the book and if you started reading it, Amazon reviews are so helpful for authors. I really appreciate it.
I'm going to read the last two comments and then we're going to wrap up. We're almost out of we're a little bit over time. So this person says, if you're in a fast-paced project while they just want you to work with developers, write the user stories and deliver the solution, how do you manage the balance between what you know the team needs using business analysis and just doing what they want, especially if they're adamant on what they want? Yeah,
Yeah, this
typical
is
BA
when
problem.
show versus tell, right?
Yeah.
So they want user stories, but in order to get user stories that actually reflect business needs, you probably need to understand the business requirements, meet with stakeholders to clarify what they want out of out of the software. So you just do like a user story is not you do all the work around a user story to make sure that user story actually represents the business need. And once as you start to do it, that will show itself as being more valuable because the work that gets produced at the end will be better received. So yeah, you ask why is this user stories that have a why embedded, right? So that, and that is your business objective. And you just use the process within the context of user stories to get started.
Yeah, and I think in her case, because it's a fast-paced environment and they probably just want to get the output out. Maybe they're behind, maybe they have a big deadline, and they're like, okay, we just want you to write user stories. We don't want you to do all the analysis. This is what we want. Just go write it like a scribe. So it's almost like you're getting directive from somebody and they expect just a user story output, and they're not at this moment asking for all the analysis that we typically do. There's a danger in that because you could just become a scribe. You're just writing what somebody tells you. You're not doing your actual role. But also you have to evaluate, what does the team really need right now? Are they behind? Are they struggling? Do they have a big backlog that they haven't had a chance to get in the definition of ready? And they just need to get through this phase to get something out, and then they can you can have retrospectives where you talk about how to improve and stuff like that. So sometimes you have to go with the flow to deliver what they want right now, but wherever you get a chance to really add value by suggesting the best thing that you know is better for them, then if there's an opportunity to do that, and that would be great in your retrospectives, that would be a great place to suggest what we
Yeah.
should do to improve the next coming sprint. But it's difficult in a fast-paced environment. I do understand the challenge, and especially
Yeah.
when they're adamant, we want this thing right now, and if they've been there, if you're new and they've been there before you and they already know everything and you're just catching up, there's sometimes in fast-paced environments they don't have the patience to wait for you to catch up. They just want the output. But you have to navigate that very carefully, deliver what they want, but at the same time incrementally see where you can make suggestions, add value, try to get
Yeah.
the leadership, because you don't have control over what they decide, but try to get the leadership to understand how you can really be much more valuable if you're allotted the space to do the right business analysis
Yeah.
for the needs that they have. So yeah.
Yeah, I miss the whole like wanting you to work with just developers, right? So yes,
Yeah.
sometimes you definitely always want to be successful within the context of what the value, like what is it that they're valuing in that role first, and then bring the BA process in and expand it from there. But if you don't meet them where you're at, you might never gain the credibility to have that bigger conversation.
All right, so we are over time. I'll take two more questions and then I'm gonna let Laura go because I don't know if you have anything else on the schedule. So this person says, what you said about offering, oh, hello, ladies. These sessions are very helpful. Thank you. Yes, we're great that we can provide value with that here. Other person says, what you said about offering value at a new company instead of going with the flow of the current process. How do we balance bringing new value while understanding and respecting their process, meaning their existing process? How do we balance that?
Yeah, you definitely want to start with if there's a process in place, that's a great thing. And understand that process, work within that process, and then use that like iterative tweaking. Where's the problems? So what are their complaints about that process, or their complaints about the outcomes they're getting from that process that they don't, that you can offer enhancements or tweaks or adjustments that will help solve that. So really focus on those pain points and use those as inroads to bring a bit of more business analysis into it if that process is not BA focused.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
This person says, I have a question. What should I have to ask if they ask, do you have any questions? Suggest 2 or 3 questions, please. Do you mean in the interview? If they ask if you have any questions at the end of the interview, is that what you mean? I'm not sure if that's what you mean, Praveen, if you want to answer that in the
I'm pretty
chat.
sure that that would be in that context. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say you always want to have questions as a business analyst. If you go in an interview and you don't have questions, that would be a red flag.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's your job is to ask questions. So ask questions about the team, ask questions about the business environment, ask questions about the process works, and be asking those questions not just at the end, but as you go, like share your expertise and then clarify. You work here, is it a little bit different? I've worked in organizations that have different, and that can help you level set as you go through the interview too. They're saying yes,
For
this is the
sure.
job.
For sure. So like Laura is saying, like ask questions about the team. One of the questions you can ask, for example, could be, do you have team that's all on site, or do you have like a off-site team? For most companies, if it's a software company, they may have a satellite team in India that does QA and testing, and then we have a site somewhere else where they have team members in different parts of the world. You could ask about that. In terms of business process, you can ask them if they're a strictly agile shop. If they haven't told you yet, if they told you, well, fine, you won't ask that. But if you can ask them if there's more of a hybrid environment or you're strictly agile, things like that. Or one of the questions I like to ask at the end of the interview, if they haven't told me by this time, would be, what project are you working on right now that I can come in and add value with? Right. So what is the project that I would first be able to help you right away with? And so they give me, it forces them to think about me in their company, adding value, working for them before the interview even ends. So I like to do that at the end of the call or the interview to kind of cement myself in their brains a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, and I say be genuinely curious, right? If you're genuinely curious about that company and that team, like you'll have questions too.
For sure. All right. Well, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. We definitely enjoyed having you here. You asked some really good questions. Thank you again, Laura, for hanging out with us today. I appreciate that. And don't forget to go check out Laura's book on Amazon and on her site, bridgingthegap.com/value. And I look forward to seeing everybody again next month when we have another special guest for our Global B stand up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Laura. Take care.